I'm just going to recount a very old ceremony that I'd missed. Ceremony 20, not because of what happened to me, but because of the story of the Shamana, English Shamana that I met. So I think going sorting all my stuff out on YouTube recently, I realised there's quite a few videos missing, and there's about 10 of them between Ayah 10 and 19. And that would have been because I was doing the dietas with Mr. Horrible, con man, which I did 2 dietas with, which would have been a month in total, and probably about 6, maybe more, I don't know, ayahuasca ceremonies, but just small ones as part of the dieta. So that's probably why they didn't get done, because I was stuck in the jungle with no internet or anything, and then probably wouldn't have had, there's no electricity there, so I wouldn't have been able to charge the phones. That's probably why I didn't really get anything done. And I probably hadn't, no, I hadn't thought about doing a video diary really, although I did do ayahuasca 10, but I hadn't thought about it being an ongoing thing. So anyway, this one picks up again then, because I distinctly remember Ayah 20, because when I left that horrible shaman, because of various things that happened there, like in getting drunk at the weekend, when he was supposed to be on a dieta as well, and I'd made the big mistake being naive and trusting back in the early days of thinking shamans would be sort of, really moral people, blah, 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 not just sort of Peruvian mentality in general about rip off the gringo. So I paid for 3 dietas up front. Big mistake, because I had to leave after 2. And I remember the second dieta being Morosa, and even Morosa giving me this impression, Steve, something's wrong here. You need to get out. And of course, you don't want to upset a shaman. So of course, I consequently, I waited for the Arcana to be finished on that Friday and left. I didn't go back for the third one, but I got Ida to create a text in Spanish for me and send it just for interest, knowing that I wouldn't get anywhere, because this is what I say about the rip-offs, and you haven't got a leg to stand on, because they just don't give a shit. Certainly not legally, you haven't got a leg to stand on. But I thought I'd test it. So he said, asking him, I said that I wouldn't be able to come back to this third dieta for maybe 3 months or more, because I had to leave the country. And could he send the $1,200 back through the account details from where it came? No response, of course. And this is why I don't trust, so few people here, especially shamans that you go private with, because they're just greedy, rip off the gringo, no sense of morality. And I've had this a lot. So you have to be really careful, just to reiterate that. But anyway, after that, when I got back to the hospedaje, I was really worried at the time. I was still suffering from anxiety, and I was really worried about, what may have, once I found out he was corrupt, what other things he may have done. And I felt dirty. I didn't know what he was capable of. What shamans are capable of, whether they can track you or, because they know who you are, send you bad energy, all of this stuff, which of course they can. And when I got back to the first hospitality I stayed at, there was a woman there in the kitchen area making some food with her boyfriend, and she was about in her 50s, a bit younger than me, and we just got chatting because she was English, and of course, where are you from, and all this sort of stuff. And then we got on to, I said I'd just come out of the jungle on a dieta, but I wasn't very happy about it. And anyway, this conversation she gave away, we started talking about Icaros and stuff, and she mentioned on about singing Icaros, and I kind of went, oh, you sing Icaros? And she said, well, I hope so. I've been doing it for 18 years. And she turned out to be an English shamana. So this was interesting. And so I explained the situation, what I've been in. She said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. She said, I really feel like I just want another Aya ceremony with just someone else as soon as possible, and feel like get clean after being with this guy in the jungle for 2 weeks, not knowing what other nonsense he may have got up to, because obviously this was the same guy that stole 500 solos out of another girl's purse when she was asleep after an ayahuasca ceremony with him. Just a horrible, nasty piece of work, this guy. Mama used to call him nasty little shit. This particular shaman when I was in ceremony, and anyway, so she said, "Well, she said, I'll see what I can do. I'm trying to help you." She said, "I'm actually doing a private ceremony for friends who've got a tiny maloca in the property of their house." And it turned out to be somewhere like, I can't remember, but Santa Maria, I think it was called. But anyway, it was like, down the Amazon. So anyway, I left it with her, and she got back to me to stay in the same hospital. I saw the next day or so, and she said, "I spoke to my friends, and there's about five of them going, and they said, you're welcome to come along." She was working with another shaman. I don't know where he wasn't Shipibo. He was a nice guy. I chatted to him a little bit in limited Spanish when I met him at this house. This house was owned by an American guy and an English guy who kind of bought it, and they bought it. They were into their ayahuasca. I think one of them was trying to be a trainee shaman. And anyway, it was a nice little group, and it was cozy, probably about the same size Maloka as Lighthouse, really. Maybe a bit smaller because it was in a back garden. So they bought this property with this Maloka already built in it. And she said it was local prices. It was only going to be like the one ceremony. It was 100 soles or something, I think. Maybe $100. I don't know. It was 100 soles. I'm pretty sure. And then for her and 100 for the other shaman. So I'd meet up with her or travel with her and go on this boat. Anyway, we get on this boat, and partway into the journey, I start chatting to her and say, so what's your story? How did you become a shamana? And she said, "I was here in 2004 as a young girl in her sort of late teens or 20s maybe, and she just happened to meet certain people, and it led to ayahuasca ceremonies, which you think back in 2004 wasn't, the internet wasn't particularly well grown by then, and certainly not the information that we've got now. So hardly anyone in the West would have known about ayahuasca. And anyway, but her really interesting story was because she was the first person that I ever met who said that she got the voice in her head talking to her. But this occurred in a really interesting way when I was talking to her. And she said she did her first ayahuasca ceremony. And partway through the ceremony, she was just thinking to herself like what her future plans would be. And then this voice appeared in her head and just said, "Forget all that. You work for me now." And of course, she was a bit shocked hearing this voice in her head. And she was like, "Oh, I do? Really? And who the fuck's talking to me anyway?" And that was really funny, But so she was the first person that I ever met that had that same connection with Mama Ayahuasca, where the voice is in your head and you're talking, and this voice just pops into your head. So I thought that would be worth putting out there because that's IR20, which it hasn't been done. So that's around this time actually, because a bit earlier. It's December the 12th now, so 2024. So that would have been 2 years ago. No, the first year that was. So 2021. So that's 3 years ago now. Ceremony 20. Would have been around about October, November time. So yeah, just over 3 years ago. She was called Luna. Where was she from? It was up north, because there was an earthquake at the time, and it broke all the roads. She couldn't get back. But anyway, the ceremony itself was just pretty straightforward. I remember she had a beautiful voice. She sang really lovely Icaros wherever she learned them. I don't know what her history was or who she trained with. I didn't know enough back then to ask those sort of questions. The guy was a nice guy. He was quite powerful, it seemed. He was a local shaman from Belen up the road here. But he wasn't Shipibo, so I don't know what he was, but maybe he was Kokama as well, because he had a really nice atmosphere about him, which the Kokama seem like that. They're much warmer people than I find the Shipibo. The Shipibo, I think, are cold, and I have a theory about that. I think part of the reason they appear so powerful is they use a lot of the dark side healing magic, because you can use both, because obviously you control both elements of the spirit world for healing purposes. But I think there's an aspect of that makes them hard-faced, hard, cold-hearted. and a little bit more callous in their general attitude towards gringos. Not all of them, of course. I have met some really nice ones, but you know, they're not quite so open and friendly as I found as the Kokama that I've met for sure. But anyway, thought that would just knock off Aya 20 and put one back in the history. So I'll stick it on the playlist in the right place.